This is the story of two men named Tyler and Thomas. They spent their days bickering to each other about the sometimes old and rather outdated rides, attractions, shops and areas in the Walt Disney World theme park in Florida. They thought to themselves, what would they do if they had infinite time and money to change everything? And then, one day, something happened that would change them forever. They discovered a whole fan community of like-minded Disney fans who would appreciate their ramblings and hard opinions about theme park attractions put into a monthly podcast. And that is where our story begins. You're listening to Ride Rehab on WDWNT.com. And now, here are your hosts, Tyler Mann and Thomas Kiernan.
Welcome to Ride Rehab. I'm Tyler Mann.
And I'm Thomas Kiernan.
And I'm Kevin from Defunctland.
And we are recording this episode from inside one of the teleportation tubes inside of Stitch's Great Escape, or Stitch's Character Encounter, whatever it's basically called now. The point is, there's people doing meet and greets outside, and we're inside this giant round theater, and we're sort of trapped in this tube, but I'm sure we'll get teleported out of here at some point.
At some point, I'm sure.
But please welcome our guest for this episode, Kevin. Kevin, thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, since we're here in this giant tube, we may as well talk about Stitch's Great Escape for a little bit, because this attraction has had so much weird history behind it, or the space that it's in right now, and I feel like there's so much more that they could do with it, and I think fans want that as well, but Disney's just not giving us anything. So let's get started first by saying I actually like Stitch's Great Escape, and everyone thinks I'm insane, but Tom's never been on it, so he's sort of going to be like the devil's advocate for whether or not it's good and if it should just be torn down completely. But Kevin, have you had the pleasure of riding Stitch, or being on, since it's not a ride? Have you ever been on Stitch's Great Escape?
I have, yes. It's horrible. I don't know. I having just knowing about extraterrestrial, and then, in hindsight, writing Stitch's Great Escape is just the most different experience, because you get on it and you're watching, and it's one of those things is like, what am I doing here? Like, what is this? And the same way as the carousel progress to like little kids is confusing because you're moving in a weird way. It's just the entire setup is so different from any other attraction. But it's not a good reaction. It's not like, oh, this is unique and interesting. It's like, oh, this is just bad. But I'm sorry that you like it, because I because I feel like I'm being negative. It's just I personally do not.
I went on it back in like 2008, back when I didn't even get, I was never using the internet, so I had never seen any reviews of it. I knew nothing about what the ride was about. So after coming out of it, I'm like, wow, that was really cool. I actually like the binaural audio stuff. You don't see that a lot in the parks anymore. All of it's pretty much gone. But I actually enjoy it. Like, the whole idea of being in this dark room while an alien, tortures you, kind of, is pretty intriguing. But I can see why people like the Alien Ecnounter version, because it was so dark. But then this version is just a watered down, shoehorned IP kind of going into that space. I mean, it doesn't do it justice to watch videos of it, but Tom has seen. But I mean, I am one of those weird people who actually does enjoy it, but I'm sure it's going to be disappeared at some point.
I mean, it'd be one of those rides that I would go on if it was open, just because it's not that much of a time commitment or a wait, and you get to sit down for a while, and you get to see, the repurposed Sir, and you get to see Skippy. But it's the ride itself. It's just I don't know. It's the Stitch animatronic that is supposed to be amazing. It's supposed to be. I mean, it's like it is interesting, but it just, to me, it always feels like he's rotating the same way that the Tiki Birds do in the Tiki Room, and that it's just that really quick movement of he has to everyone's surrounding him, so he has to turn really fast to give everyone the same experience, and it's just, I don't know. When the alien from Alien Ecnounter did it, it felt like it was trying to get out and just freaking out, so it just felt more natural. But this one is literally, it just feels like a giant figure of Stitch is just trying to turn to see everyone possible. Yeah, and that's one of my very many complaints about the redo of what is arguably one of Disney's best attractions of all time.
You mean Alien Ecnounter?
Yes. Not Mission to Mars.
Not Mission to Mars and
Rocket to the Moon. No.
The space is so weird. Like, if you look at it from top down for Google Maps, it's such a condensed space. Like, the fact that it has these two theaters that are sort of side by side, but there's not a whole lot of stuff you could do in there. Like, you couldn't really fit another type of attraction into that space. And the whole theater in the round thing is a little bit interesting because there's not a lot you can also do in that space. The Monsters Inc. theater used to be a 360 theater, and then they just sort of cut it in half and shoved a screen in the middle. So even they realized, like, oh, well, the 360 thing, that's not going to work. But to that end, I would love to keep it that way, but that's not what we're about. We're Ride Rehab, and we want to figure out how to fix this or rehab it in a completely different way. It's like an open concept thing right now. We can do whatever we want.
All right, well, before we continue, for the hypothetical people out there who haven't been on this ride or haven't experienced this ride, we call it a ride, but isn't it essentially you sit down, you're strapped into your seats, and then you watch a show with lots of animatronics and lighting and things?
Pretty much. It's not that this is the argument about whether it's a good or not, is because people are like, well, it's not really a ride.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I mean, Tiki Room's not really a ride, but Disney calls everything a show. Mm-hmm. And this is essentially a show. The whole idea of being strapped into these things was to make you feel more confined.
Okay.
And unable to move, and that added to that sort of horror kind of aspect they had when it was Alien Ecnounter released.
So what you're kind of telling me is that it's tough to be a bug, but in a circular theater, and you get strapped into your seat.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Things happen around you, and it's scary. And
okay. Or it's supposed to be scary.
It's supposed to be
supposed to be scary.
But
it was scary before they changed it.
Okay, good to know.
Can we talk about Alien Ecnounter first, maybe?
Well, isn't that the whole point of this show?
Yes. I would have loved to have gone on it. WDWNT, the site we're on, they've done sort of this unpacking of what the original concept art and what the ride was going to entail back in, because it had a couple different iterations when Alien Ecnounter opened. They had a version that was apparently so scary they had to tone it down and add more lights to the part where the lights are turned off, or not splashing people with warm water to indicate there was blood splashing on the audience. That's the one I would have wanted to go on. I would have so the earliest I remember was going to Disney in 97, and I would have been 6 years old then, and I absolutely would not have gone on a ride like this. And if I did, I probably would have wanted to leave because it was far too frightening. But now I would absolutely go on a ride like that. And it's so bizarre that originally it was going to be Alien. I mean, that was the huge thing at the time.
Well, I was going to say that's the ride I would have wanted to go on. Would be a version of this that's Ridley Scott's Alien. That would have been exciting. Seeing a big, and we already have these alien animatronics because they've been used in the numerous different movies, and so it would be easy to translate them over.
And great movie ride.
Yeah, and you can still keep all the different things. The problem is that it kind of, well, I guess it's an IP now as well, that breaks the theming of Tomorrowland.
That was the thing. Do we agree that this just does not belong in Tomorrowland at all?
No, it completely belongs in Tomorrowland. The Extraterrestrial or Stitch's Great Escape?
Oh, I was going to say in general,
Either or.
but yeah, I mean,
oh my gosh,
one version does fit a bit more than the other. Like the Access Tech, when they were sort of showing off their technology,
that absolutely fits, because in 1994 they did the only rebranding of Tomorrowland that the Magic Kingdom has received, and they made it into the future that has never happened, and is that when aliens come to our planet. So you have the Tomorrowland Convention Center, and they have the Timekeeper, and then you have so the Timekeeper shows you time travel and all the things that can bring you. And then on the across the way, you have Extraterrestrial, which that shows you teleportation. And so it's these people that it's turned it into a world expo in a world in which aliens came down to Earth. And so I think it totally fits for that version of Tomorrowland. That's very futuristic, in a very fictional future.
Yeah, but now we have it's Stitch's Great Escape, and then across the way is Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor.
Okay, I can see that doesn't make any sense. I've always said that.
And that's so weird because it's the first two things you see when you walk in Tomorrowland. Those are the main sort of entry attractions into this world, and that just makes no sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, Tomorrowland has never been 100% coherent, except for when it opened, and when it opened, there were no rides, really. And so, like, when the Magic Kingdom opened, by 1971, we had already gotten to the moon, and so it's not the future anymore. So Mission to Mars is still the future. It could just be like Elon Musk's Mission to Mars, if that's that could be your rebranding.
And we do already go to Mars on Mission Space. Like that's sort of the evolution of that ride, if anything. Because obviously Mission Space is not like Horizons in any way, but yeah, like Mission Space would actually seemingly fit better here because it is more about that sort of retro future, the future that is not coming sort of yet. And so Mission Space would be great in this area, and you also have two giant rooms that are already sort of circular in shape that could host. It's kind of frustrating that it's this Stitch ride where it doesn't feel like we've talked on this on this podcast before about immersion and interaction, and in this case there's a slight amount of immersion, but there's just no level of interaction. You know, there's always these Disney rides where you get taken and and it's like, oh, you're going to do this, and then we just sit there and do nothing. Mm-hmm. And like we don't, even if we pressed a button, it would feel like it was interactive at least once. Like you push a button and then something sprays on you, like you triggered that yourself.
Well, I was going to say it is very convoluted. For Stitch's Great Escape, the reason we are here, it's like, you're new recruits and you need to watch this thing happen and blah 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 blah. Whereas with the other extraterrestrial version, yeah, we are an audience. It's a tech company showing things off. And even with the Alien version, the Ridley Scott Alien version, we could have had Wayland Yutani doing a demonstration of their technology.
It was going to be that. That's sort of in like the project outline book.
And that's nice and clean and simple. It explains why we're in seats and things like that. That's a point at which the immersion breaks because of the narrative that we're given.
Yeah, we're new recruits on this day, on this exact minute, and we're about and then Richard Kind tells us all about transportation, and then oh my god, a level 3 shows up, and we gotta move into this room, and like that's it, that's our training.
Yeah,
it took place over the course of a minute and a half. Yeah, basically,
it's a lot of flack that could be cut.
And then we're told, like, go and just watch the prisoner, and then the voice actors all go away.
Yes,
and we're just expected to sit there and stare at Stitch while he does stuff. It's not like Stitch is presenting something. It's not like Stitch is trying to show us teleportation, and then Stitch screws up and brings in a giant alien.
I was going to say it would almost make more sense if they did the fourth wall theater thing, where we are just observers, and we're not involved in the ride at all, and we watch the thing, the experience. And we just watch it escape. But I guess that's not what Disney's all about. They're all about, like, you're part of the magic too.
Well, Kevin brought it up a minute ago about the theater in the round also being, like, weird. Like, would this be better if it was on a stage?
If it was on a stage, maybe. No, I was going to say no as well. There's something about it being a theater in the round that gives it a lot more life. Just because it means there's fewer places to hide things.
Yep.
If it was a wide flat box theater type thing, you'd be easily be able to be like, oh well, they hid something there and they hid something there, and it would not be as interesting as it is or could be with the theater in the round setup.
Well, let's move on to how we would rehab this.
Okay.
How would we reskin this ride? Like, I mean, we could easily just take it back to being Alien Ecnounter, but that'll upset a lot of parents and children, I'm sure.
I don't care about parents and children.
Kevin, you're our guest. How would you reskin this ride?
Well, you could take it back to Alien Ecnounter. I think, I know I shouldn't say that this is not a good idea, but I don't think that just because of the 20th Century Fox thing is now happening seems more and more likely, in that doing the alien thing is I would not be happy with that. Doing Ridley Scott's Alien, it's just so much. It's such a different tone, and so not Disney. That even with Extraterrestrial being a scary ride, it was so clearly on brand Disney to me. Just because you have these aliens that are green and they have big foreheads, and it's just so wacky while also being terrifying. It's just that it just felt very Disney produced, because it was. And anything that is not Disney produced and then trying to put that into the parks, like Avatar, it just doesn't feel right to me. I mean, and maybe it's just because I know that it's not Disney produced, but I also just feel like whenever someone's creating something independently without the studio and without that creative hand, it creates such a different product that it does not mean that's bad or that it's any less good. In some cases, I'm sure it's much better. It just feels so wrong to have it in a Disney park. Even if Harry Potter was put in Disney, it would still feel wrong to me. It's not Disney. Marvel at this point has now feels Disney. Star Wars, for better or for worse, feels very Disney right now, because now that they have that creative hand in it, that they're just basically making it what they want. But no, like Harry Potter, if there was a Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and like what would that be? Hollywood Studios? That'd be so out of place.
I was going to say Magic Kingdom. It literally has magic in the title.
That's true.
They just put it in like a more the Fantasyland part of it. That's a part of Magic Kingdom, right?
Yes.
But so Alien, and also it's just so terrifying. So like the Great Movie Ride had the Alien show scene in it.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, Great Movie Ride. But it was just, it felt, because it was just a small portion of a much larger thing with a bunch of other movies that felt like a tribute to movies. But point being is, I don't think we should go back to the original idea of Alien. I think if you want to do it again, it'd have to be scarier than it was in the 90s, because the world is a scarier place now. So yeah. I think you would have to up the ante. We've had the internet for about 20 years or 25 years longer than, I don't even know how much they had in 1995. How long? I mean, especially, let's see, YouTube came out in 2005. And as far as just like horrific things on the internet, I feel like that didn't really start until like the early 2000s, maybe even mid 2000s.
I was going to say the population at large didn't really discover the small horrible things on the internet. I say small horrible things, the large horrible things on the internet until the early 2000s. Yeah, I think you're correct there. I'm sure those things were there long before.
Oh, I'm certain they were.
Yes.
But one point I'm making is it's such a different world now that even to kids you have to do a lot more to scare them. Like, you have to actually put forth a lot of effort. Because I mean, I know some of my like friends' kids and different things that they watch scary movies and they're not even that scared. It's just like, oh, something jumps out and they're like, but like psychologically they're fine. They've seen way worse on the internet. But you'd have to go back to some of those original ideas that Alien Ecnounter, scrubbed over,
right?
When they were doing that soft opening. I think the Jim Hill, who wrote up the long history of Alien Ecnounter, that did a lot of the research, that he talks about some of those things, like you mentioned earlier, the blood. You might want to. It doesn't fit in a Disney park, but I mean, it's something that you might consider. It's if you're gonna make Extraterrestrial and you want to make it scary, you're gonna have to up it. And so I don't know if you could do that. If you could do that. Okay. What do you think?
Well, what you just touched on is exactly what I was thinking, because Tom and I are rewatching a lot of old horror movies. We watched Alien and we watched Exorcist and Exorcist 2 and not stuff that what
I was gonna say. The Exorcist holds up. That movie's still really scary, but
even Alien was.
But I was gonna say, and Alien was too. But the thing about Exorcist is that it's scary when you think about it, and the way it sort of slowly immerses you into this world, and the way it sort of defines everything and makes it feel real is what makes that movie scary.
Yes.
Whereas Alien, it's scary because there's a scary monster.
Tension.
It's the tension that makes it frightening, and that there's a creature loose about on the ship, and it's so foreign and unknown to us that it just wants to murder us.
So, the best thing to do
is The Exorcist. No, sorry.
Oh my god! Like talking about things that wouldn't belong in Tomorrowland.
But
I mean, I absolutely want to watch that ride now. But I was gonna say, just have no alien. You could do a whole version of Stitch's Great Escape or Alien Ecnounter where we don't see anything or we don't even hear anything. Maybe at the end they drop like water on the audience, and that would just freak everyone out because nothing happens for 3.5 minutes.
Well, this is we're going to get to a different point here. I'm afraid I have to disagree with you, Mr. Man, because we have to remember that this has to be scary mostly for kids. Right. If adults get scared as well, that's a bonus. But if it's and I'm going to say, I thought when you said no alien, I thought, so do we just sit down? It starts, some lights go around, and then we all get up and leave, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Because there's no alien. Sorry, guys. There turns out no extraterrestrial encounter today.
That'd be super tense.
Because
nothing happens.
I was going to say, nothing happens, and then the ride ends. Because if you make it too subtle, a bunch of kids are going to be kicking the back of seats, bored out of their minds. I don't know if you can do that in that theater, because I've never physically been in there. But
pretty much.
But if it's just boring, nothing happens for a long time, then people are just going to get bored. Because remember, you have to hit the lowest common denominator of people. And these days, people expect jump scares and scary monsters and loud noises. So you can't just have water dripping on people and be like, it's alien saliva, because it's just not scary to them.
Well, currently, Stitch jumps on top of your restraint, and it lowers slightly to make you feel like something's on top of you.
Neat.
But that's not scary. I mean, are we supposed to even be scared in Stitch's Great Escape?
No,
I think supposed to be laughing. It's not even very clear, because it is this. It feels like a hasty reskin.
I think it's you're not. I don't think you're supposed to be scared, because Stitch is like a lovable alien.
Yes,
and so you know that going in.
Yes.
That like he's not something to fear. He's just annoying. But yeah, no. If you were gonna make extraterrestrial scarier, one thing I would consider doing is take use of projection mapping and actually make the alien on the walls.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like silhouette, and like time it with air blasts and by the audio.
Yes.
I can't even say it. What's the audio? I can't.
Binaural audio.
Yeah, I'm not. I can't even pronounce that. I'll just throw it over to you every time I need to pronounce it. So I think you could do it, and use projection mapping to. You won't see the alien, but just to see silhouettes.
Yes.
Have things explode. Use some more fire effects. Those kind of things. One thing that I always thought would be interesting is if they have rows. So you have I don't know how many rows there are. I should say you have, if you were looking at the rows like a column, you have a row where you could walk down to get to the other rows. So if you're in the first row, you can walk down. I'm explaining the simplest concept in the hardest way possible. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay. There's stairs in this ride, so you can get. You know how you're in a movie theater? Okay,
It's raked.
We know what you mean.
It's called raked seating.
Oh, is it? Great.
Yes.
So throw it over to you whenever I need that. You have one of the steps, because the steps are really long, because the way in which you get into the chairs are really long.
Yes.
So you have a step it's a fake step. It can, during the ride, it can open, and up can come an animatronic alien.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
That would be wonderful.
And so and you only see it for a few seconds, and it's not like an A100, so it's not doing some crazy movements, but it's similar in size, just to see it somewhere else, and just do some strobe lights. But just could you imagine just seeing it outside? How scary that would be! If you were the person right next to it, far enough away where you can't touch it, but the mind is a wonderful thing. They give you I remember back in college, I would take some sort of psychology class, and they did the blind spot test. Have you ever done that?
No. What is that?
It's essentially you have a blind spot. Your vision has a blind spot.
Oh yeah.
and your brain compensates for it all the time. So if you get a piece of paper and you put a black dot on it, you can move it around to the left side. You got to find it. Mine's on my left side. And to the point where your brain will just like erase the black dot because it's like, okay, I see white everywhere else. I'm just going to put white here and patch it up. Like that's your
too big
brain.
of a dot, Tyler, man.
Oh, okay.
Are you trying to do it?
I'm doing
He's
it
trying
right now.
No, I'm also gonna try to find something to do it. But you can't see it, and it's a lot harder to do with just anything but that. But you're essentially the dot disappears completely, because your brain is like, I'm gonna fix this for you, because I can't actually see right there.
That's right.
Because that's where the visual information is entering the frontal cortex. Look at that. I'm also a science person. I think that was right. I'm going to get a lot of emails now.
Hey kids listening to Ride Rehab, our special assignment for you today is to find your blind spot. And let us know where it is. Put it in the comments.
Yeah. Please tell us exactly where it is.
Tweet us a photo of your blind spot.
But I think if I may extrapolate from what you're saying, is that we put the animatronic right around where people's blind spot is, seat-wise. When that animatronic rises out, no one notices it, and then you shine a light and make a noise, and everyone will turn to see it. I don't know how much of these...
It's like the Doctor Who monster. It's always in the corner of your eye where you can't see, sort of thing.
Well,
I don't remember this.
Well, the blind spot was just a way of saying that your brain is a magical thing.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
In that,
okay.
no, but what your brain does is it compensates for things. And
yes.
So if you have the wind blowing on the back of your neck, if you have the motion of the seats, if you have some lights, you have some visual references, and you have audio references, your brain already is, connecting those dots, and you're on a ride, and there's not an alien, but if everything else besides your conscious is telling your brain that there is an alien here,
yes,
then that's what makes that ride scary. But then you put a animatronic over there, and then your brain just freaks out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because this whole time you've been like, there's not really an alien, and then your brain's like, I think there's an alien, and they're like, no, it's an effect. It's an effect. Holy cow! Oh my gosh! It's like both you and your conscious will be like, I will be gone for a second. I think that's my major improvement, is would be projection mapping and actually have the second animatronic rise up from another portion, doing something somewhere.
It's like if in Sounds Dangerous, Drew Carey just actually came out of back of the theater and ran around for a second. You'd be like, there's no way that... Oh my gosh!
Drew Carey's not really here. There he is.
He's not real.
Drew Carey's not real. Oh my god, no, please. I just agree with everything you say, Kevin, so I'm not going to just retread the things you say. While it wouldn't fit with Disney, I think that's why Alien would fit within that kind of ride, because the alien creatures, as we learn, are very easy to hide in places. You can hide them in like tubing and other such cramped places that you wouldn't think to hide something, and then they could crawl out or move around. And while I think that I agree with you that it doesn't fit thematically with the Disney motifs and such, I think it works as a scary creature to run around this auditorium, because of the way those monsters are, where they're very fast, their carapace is like black, and so they're hard to see, so they're very easy to hide in shadow. And so I think they would work perfectly for this type of ride, not necessarily this exact ride.
No.
Yeah.
It couldn't go back here, basically.
Yes.
I'd love it, but it couldn't go back here.
No.
Maybe not even in a Disney park at this point.
I was going to say maybe Hollywood Studios.
It was always out of place.
Yes.
It was thematically consistent, but it wasn't tonally consistent.
Yes. Tonally consistent is more what we're going for.
If Tomorrowland did have another sort of overhaul where they kept like the original excess tech Weyland-Yutani kind of exterior that they wanted to have for like the version when it was going to be at like Disneyland, that would have been awesome. But look up this concept art. It looks phenomenal, and it would have been so cool, but it's just not going to happen, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. Yeah. Shall we shoehorn some IPs now?
I don't see why not.
Okay, well let's let's start with the obvious one. How can this be a Star Wars ride?
Yes, the first thing you always got to jump to, because you're thinking like a cynical Disney executive, is Star Wars. And they've actually have the perfect thing for this. They're Rathtars on that ship that we find Han Solo on in The Force Awakens. We just have a Rathtar in a tube. And they're like, we're transporting the Rathtar now, and then it drops in, and we got this fun little animatronic. I say fun little, it should be a fun giant animatronic with crazy waving tentacles and stuff. That's
it
trapped in
physically
the tube.
grabs one of the audience members and pulls them into the roof.
Sure. That would be amazing. It makes me think of we watched House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
You remember how at the beginning of that they had the fake rides that would break, and then they'd have the fake carts and stuff like go shooting off it. That's what I think of. Like they've got a dummy in one of the chairs, and then the dummy gets pulled away. But that's how Star Wars would fit in. Or if you're feeling like, you know what, we don't want to. People aren't really liking this new trilogy as much as we thought they would. Let's go back. You can make it the Rancor pit.
That would be cool.
It would be cool to have a giant Rancor animatronic.
I want the Wampa ice
or
cave.
the Wampa could work. Yeah.
We're all hanging from the ceiling instead of sitting on the floor.
Could you imagine? It's you get in the room, and then they're like, they like put these anklets around your legs, and you're stuck to the ground, and they're like, please remain still, and like the floor slowly rotates
whole ride
up,
turns upside down,
and then you're just hanging there, and then the Wampa comes in.
I think this could work, like if it was all of those monsters, and there was some sort of
there's some sort of reason for them all to be together,
maybe it's just a transition. Like they are like the room is it the teleportation device? You can even get rid of the tube in the middle. And
yes.
like it's just like a trip through the Star Wars universe. Like you know how Star Tours now is just like, oh hey, you're here now. Like
yes.
and it doesn't care at all.
Yes.
Like
which is fine.
Like yeah, who cares? I guess no. The art is dead anyways, so we might as well milk it while we can.
True.
But like you could do a you're now in the new trilogy and it's a Rancor and then like the room gets really cold and there's like and the lights shine white and now you're in the Hoth Caves and now it's like and then you could go to the Rancor pit and now you're in Return of the Jedi. Then it's like, oh look at now you're on Geonosis and Attack of the Clones and there's the Geonosians or whatever those were called.
Geonosians, yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
They're the bug people, yeah.
Okay.
I actually thought they were really cool when I was a kid, but
it's a Geonosian.
A lesser culture that is exploited by the separatists. They're all like insane bug people, and the separatists. Okay, I can't get into this. Sorry.
It's like this Colosseum. Honestly, I don't remember anything about that movie.
They're the bug people in the Colosseum.
I was thinking the exact same thing about what if this wasn't a teleportation room? What if the thing in the center was like a portal instead, and stuff came out of the portal?
That could be
cool. And that's exactly what like when Kevin was like, "Oh yeah, let's go through every Star Wars thing," like, and all these monsters come out or something like that. Could be okay. So I wrote down Tomorrowland portal. Remember in the movie Tomorrowland, they had like a portal to other dimensions, and so they could go to like Earth. Basically, it was sort of what they were trying to open up, the gateway or the bridgeway, as they called it. That's one way of getting through. Is
right.
This bridgeway.
But I was gonna say, do they have like a big portal that leads to other dimensions?
Yeah, because at the end, remember they send all the little kids through, and it keeps switching between like different like parts of Earth, so that they could deploy all these robot children.
So it's a portal that leads to other parts of Earth. It's not to other dimensions, Tyler, man.
We don't know that. The Disney film Tomorrowland was sort of about how Earth is terrible, and all these visionaries came together to find a way to another dimension where we could live peacefully. And Hugh Laurie is crazy, and they have this bridgeway that takes you between Tomorrowland, which they never really say is in another dimension, but it has to be.
It has to be at least at the very outside of our space-time.
Yes, and then they use that to get between Earth, and that would be a good thing because this is literally Tomorrowland. It's what they based it off of, even though they never say that in the movie, and it's in a deleted scene for some reason. But that was my thing, was like a portal-style thing. And speaking of Portal, what about Aperture Science being in this area and a giant GLaDOS hanging from the ceiling?
I was about to say, I think this is the second... No, you said the Stanley Parable.
Yeah.
For Tower of Terror. At least with Portal I can understand, because it's a better known game, and yes, a giant GLaDOS animatronic that's from the ceiling and looks around and rotates around at the audience. That would be incredible. How we would make that scary, other than just GLaDOS might kill you at any second, I don't know.
Yeah, the end of the ride is like, oh well, we're piping in neurotoxin, and like actual green smoke comes out of the like rafts.
Yeah, or even just like smoke blown into the faces of into the faces around the audience, or to make it scary. Okay, well,
did you want to say something about Star Wars though?
No, I was going to suggest we get off of it
because
Magic Kingdom is the only Tomorrowland that doesn't have Star Wars all over it.
Yes.
Because I know that Disneyland is just Star Wars.
Yes.
And then Paris is just Star Wars as well, almost at this point.
Pretty much.
And then I don't know about... I'm sure... I know Tokyo is Hyperspace Mountain. Maybe it's Hong Kong. What the point is that... Yeah, let's... I don't want to shoehorn Star Wars into Magic Kingdom. Let's keep it Incredibles. It's so great this summer. You can go out and see all your favorite Incredibles. You could ride the People Mover and just hear like dun 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 dun. Like, if you love Michael Giacchino, then Tomorrowland is the place for you, because you can hear this Incredibles score. I guess our Space Mountain doesn't have his score in it. If it does, you can't hear it because you're going off of...
What do you have against Michael Giacchino?
I don't have anything against Michael Giacchino. I think he's a great composer.
But it doesn't... Incredibles is just...
A rap song they created for him. It doesn't, no. And like I love the Space Mountain score. Just
even I think, like, as much as I don't like the Incredibles theming, it brought a bit of life to Tomorrowland in some way. It could just not have been Incredibles. It could have been a science expo in general. But the whole thing of, since we're not talking about Star Wars anymore, let's talk about the other thing, which is Marvel. Because, like, there's already the Stark Expo in Tomorrowland and other parks, and they have an Iron Man themed ride in that area in their Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, but you can't do that in Florida.
Oh yeah, well, we legally can't do that in Florida. But some kind of like...
Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay. Sorry. For the purpose of hypothetical, I thought you meant like, why is there no Stark Expo? And I was like, well, I mean, there are reasons.
There's like a law.
Yes. Yeah. No. It's purely hypothetical.
But yeah, okay. If we could, I mean, like a whole like Stark presentation of technology or something, have stuff like around the room. It doesn't even have to be a sitting ride anymore either. We're sort of not getting into destroying the whole tiered seating or the rate seating system.
I was about to say, Tyler, man, it sounds like you're just like you're talking about like a museum full of Stark technology.
Sort of like, remember when? Well, here, okay, so let me put another Disney thing in there. Big Hero 6. Remember they had like the presentation that Hero was doing? He was on like a circular platform,
yes,
showing off the microbots. Like that, that would be how you did it. You would have somebody in the middle doing this sort of show kind of thing where they show off a bunch of technology, and then maybe like a rocket fist launches off and flies around the room or something. That would be kind of interesting.
I think the formula to Alien Ecnounter is so important to it, though, where it's
pre-show, main show where we see an alien kind of thing.
Yes, something has to go wrong, and I think there has to be a villain, because we have to have that formulaic setup and stuff. So I'm sure we could have something Marvel related in that.
And I've made the joke before about it replacing Stitch with just Groot and having Groot scream.
I was going to say, instead of having the tube in the middle, what you have is you have a laser beam that shoots up and opens a giant blue portal in the sky, just like in all the movies in Marvel.
You could just have, instead of Stitch in the middle, you could have just an Iron Man suit animatronic.
Yeah,
and
why
then
not?
You could just projection map like him shooting like random aliens like around. You're literally just watching like a laser show.
Yeah, like in the first Avengers movie, they have that pan around shot where we see all the Avengers and they're all back to back, and Captain America throws a shield, and Hawkeye shoots an arrow, and Black Widow does a thing. And you do that, and you just make it into like animatronic form. I guess you wouldn't need animatronics though. You could just use live actors.
But an Iron Man animatronic suit that had that range of motion would be amazing.
That would be pretty impressive. And I guess because it's an animatronic, you don't have to worry about like someone inside there getting sweating and getting smushed and not being able to move because the suit's actually very restrictive. That could be fun. Do you know who doesn't have a... Oh, no, we can't do Spider... Well, hypothetically, you could do the Tom Holland Spider... Like, if we're doing hypothetically. I know you can't actually have Spider-Man show up in the parks, but it could be like a Spider-Man ride where he hops around and swings around the audience. He's not trying to kill us. Maybe there's something in the middle, like Michael Keaton. Sorry, not just Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is the Vulture in the middle. And, Spider-Man, hops around the audience and, I don't know, we feel his webbing drop from the ceiling onto us.
The theater in the round, it does sort of lend to a horror ride, like was mentioned before, where it's like you can't hide in that area.
Yes, exactly.
And it happens all around you. It's not like effects in front of a screen or something like that. But what I was going to say is there's this rumor that's been going around for the longest time that this is going to become a Wreck-It Ralph Sugar Rush racing ride. That, like, you bring all these people in and they sit in pretty much the same kind of seats, except they have VR helmets to put on and then they race a car. And it's just that I cringe every time I hear that, because first of all, there's no way you're getting that many people in and out of a room with VR helmets, to making everyone be able to race each other and drive a vehicle. And also, Wreck-It Ralph wouldn't belong in Tomorrowland either.
Okay, but I think
it's now.
I think we've established that they don't care about the theming. How is the Monsters Inc. laugh floor part of Tomorrowland? In the future, we'll be able to fuel things with laughter. Yeah, all right, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, Disney.
As opposed to Screams, is what we've been doing recently.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
I've seen that rumor. Iger has consistently said that he does not want VR attractions in the park. One, because it's super gimmicky.
Yeah,
it's so obnoxiously a gimmick. VR at home is awesome, but you're gonna go to an amusement park to do something you could have done at home. Other than your seat's gonna vibrate, which I can do that. So I have friends that can come and vibrate my seats for me. Thank you very much. Don't need to pay $125. But it's just, and you're gonna be, how many problems they're gonna cause? How much pink eye are people gonna get? I mean, I know they do this at Six Flags parks, but I mean, they do a lot of things at Six Flags parks that Disney wouldn't do. It's just, I don't know. That rumor, I don't know why. How would that work? Not saying it's not true that they're thinking about doing that. It might happen, and it might be awesome, but it just seems like such a huge leap to do that. I don't know. The Wreck-It Ralph VR is just a stupid phrase to begin with, but given what that new trailer looked like, they basically, I don't know, I guess they spun some wheel and they're like, which one of these properties is going to become our next blatant cash in? And Zootopia, they didn't land on Zootopia, so they're like, all right, Wreck-It Ralph.
Hey there, this is Tyler. It's at this point in the podcast that we went off on a giant tangent about the IPs that appear inside the park and how IPs are terrible. Anyways, we cut out pretty much a 20-minute chunk of this podcast. If you want to listen to that entire bit, we're going to put it up as a bonus episode on our SoundCloud. You can go to riderehab.com to listen to that directly, but we'll just take it back to the moment in the podcast where we realize we've been rambling and we try and get things back on track. Thanks for listening. But a Wreck-It Ralph VR ride.
I'm sorry, we did go on a bit of a tangent there.
I don't know what you're saying.
A Wreck-It Ralph VR ride would not work in this space, and also VR, no.
That's getting cut, all of that.
That's staying in.
Oh, okay.
No, so
I think to summarize this ridiculous long tangent, don't put VR there, and definitely don't put the new Wreck-It Ralph in there,
or any IP. Whatever.
IPs sell. I can't tell. We can't tell them not to, because that's just a sound financial decision as opposed to a artistic decision, which is now.
I don't believe that it is. I don't. I still don't understand with that. I still don't understand the argument that IPs, like, I understand movie sequels. That makes sense to me because the purchase is to go see the movie.
Yes.
But are you really getting that many more people to go to the park to experience the ride because it has a new label on it? Like, how many people are really going to go to Tomorrowland this summer for only solely because it's Incredibles themes? Like, did that get anybody besides people that, like me, that go because they need to talk about it bad on the internet? Like,
there are sometimes glimmers of hope where we see something like the Sinbad ride that's in Tokyo. They have this amazing sort of it's a small world, but it's all Sinbad themed, and it's sort of themed to like that legend. It's not an IP, but it is sort of came from a place of creativity. But also, Mystic Manor is sort of like a haunted mansion, but also like a trackless ride, and it does have all these original characters. Like we have Henry Mystic, who owns the manor. We have Albert the monkey, and like those are all original characters. And it would just be so easy to say, hey, let's make an original thing that will go in the Monsters Inc. theater, and it's entirely possible that they could do this. But there must be some executive that's like, no, we got to throw Genie into it. It's got to be a whole Genie-themed show. And you're like, what? And then you watch the show and you're like, this is bizarre. I have to believe that there are Imagineers who came up with completely original ideas and all these original characters, and they are just sitting there waiting for the moment when they're like, okay, we're finally going to close Stitch. Who's got an idea? And then someone's going to jump in there and be like, I've been designing this character and this story for like the past 5 years. Like, I just have to believe that we have to hope, right? We have to hope that there is some kind of person who is wanting to uphold all of that kind of original stuff.
Well, Tyler, man, it's like they say, hope into one hand, shit into the other, and see which one fills up first.
Hope in one hand, an IP into the other.
That's right.
IP. I didn't plan that, but that's
see which one fills up first. Hey guys, it's me, Tom, and I'm just letting you know that we went on another long, boring, stupid tangent about IPs in the Disney parks, and so we're now going to cut all of that out and replace it with my voice here and put you into the end of that long tangent.
I did have another overlay that's not Star Wars or anything else related that I did think about.
Are we finally going to talk about the Alien Encounters ride in this podcast about Alien Encounters?
We went off on a gigantic tangent.
Yes, and I also just want to say that this is our second recording session in a row, no less, where Brendan Fraser has come up and been an integral part of something that's happening.
Who was the last one?
With Rob, we were like, what if Tower of Terror was a bedazzled ride with Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley?
We had a moment where we were like, screw it. Let's just get ridiculous. What if it was just bedazzled?
Well, I think that a WALL-E simulator ride would fit well. You could have you could bring back the whole mission to Mars aspect, where you're in a rocket and you can see like where you're going and where you're gonna. You could have like space windows, similar to what they're gonna be doing in the Epcot restaurant, which actually might work better considering you can't move that much because that illusion breaks if you walk more than 5 feet, I'm sure. But if you can kind of like, open up the space windows and then WALL-E comes up in the middle. They already have the WALL-E animatronic. They already built it, so this is super cheap for them. Mm-hmm. They don't even use it anymore. You just have him come up, he turns around, he like points and he does things, and then like you take off with WALL-E, and that's the whole ride. That's it. You're just kind of there, and the floor rumbles, and it looks like you're going up, and you could have a portion where you go into just space, like if the room gets dark and WALL-E could be like flying around or something. I don't know. Eve could be outside the window trying to get in.
I thought about that too, about
fun.
WALL-E, because it would fit that sort of future aesthetic of Tomorrowland.
It's the Pixar theme of Tomorrowland.
The Pixar theme of Tomorrowland, but it would at least be more of an appropriate sort of like when I think about the sort of the future, and if you were trying to compare like Lilo and Stitch versus Wall-E, Wall-E is absolutely like 1,000 times to me better. I love both of those movies, but Wall-E speaks so much more volumes with even less dialogue in the film.
I was going to say, Wall-E is also still about the future of humanity.
Yes.
We're still involved in that.
The thing is, how would you, because we are not yet in the future,
Yes.
where by and large has sort of polluted the environment, but we are still probably on the track to that.
Sure.
But the question is, how do you put in Wall-E that we've already seen in the future? But here's the thing: Stitch in this ride calls himself Stitch without even meeting Lilo,
And that's the
so
thing.
it sort of breaks that reality.
I was going to say is that none of these things matter.
Yeah.
How do you get it across to the lowest common denominator in the audience that this is it? I can picture in my head like Otto's at the center of the room and he moves around, and then
that'd be so cool.
And then Wally's just like he's a little thing that pokes his head out every now and again and goes wah, wah, and then vanishes, and you don't need to explain anything. Speaking of futures, this is completely non-Disney related, and was an idea I had about 20 minutes ago. I cannot believe that you are so very close, Tyler, man. But yes, Star Trek.
I wrote down Star Trek, and I was like, "Are you going to say Star Trek?"
Yes. You wrote down Star Trek Bridge Crew specifically, which is VR, but we'll get to that later. But I like to imagine all of us just sitting in a seat, and then some aliens beam down. They have a negotiation talk with whoever the captain is. We'll get like Picard or something like that.
I see where this is going.
Some guy who looks similar to Patrick Stewart, or some other famous captain. They'd probably go with the original series. Damn it! I need my next gen. Anyways, the point is that would happen, and then the negotiation just goes perfectly well, and nothing bad happens, and everyone leaves, and we all learn about how humanity can solve its problems through diplomacy. But anyways, that would be my terrible
Star Trek. Sounds like some kind of Epcot Innovations sort of attraction, like those attractions where it's trying to force you to learn something.
Yeah.
And then there's no real any meat to it. It's just like, what's the cheapest thing we can shove into this inventions place and do it over and over again?
Let's say we're going to gut the inside of that building and replace it with some other new thing that would fit in Tomorrowland. What would that be? Infinite time, infinite money. We can gut the place and replace the ride system, maybe even turn it into a real ride. Because you mentioned a trackless ride.
Yeah.
And I thought, wouldn't it be neat if it has the similar setup, where it's the seats, but instead of seats, you're in a ride vehicle. You're in a trackless ride vehicle. And then you have a lot more freedom to move the audience around and get them to see things. And maybe play a little bit more with the space. A similar sort of scary ride, but with a trackless vehicle, is my thought of what to go there. Exactly what? I don't know.
There's not a lot of trackless rides in the parks right now.
Yes.
As far as I know, in Walt Disney World, there isn't any. I'm trying to think back to every single ride at every single park. It's such a small space is the thing. Like, it with the two theaters, if you were to knock down the two theaters, between these two, hexagonal sort of weird theater shapes, and then knock out the pre-show area as well, you have enough space for something around the same size as Space Ranger's Spin, which is sort of an Omnimover laser blasting ride.
Sure.
So you could have space, but then there's just no queue unless you use the very small queue that you have in front of Stitch.
Well, in that case, you would probably try to implement the new queue-less system to make use of that space the same way Jimmy Fallon does.
Yeah, revisit the ride at this particular time or when the thing lights up. So walk around Tomorrowland and then just show up when the lights around Tomorrowland change. Which would be an interesting concept, actually, if Tomorrowland had a more outdoor exhibit kind of things that you could look at or wander around through. I mean, you could already just walk through the parks.
It's true.
And just enjoy looking at things. But if you're waiting in a line, you might just want to go sit down instead of being like, well, check out our courtyard right here in the middle around Astro Orbiter. But sort of one of those Omnimover kind of attractions would be. The only thing is the theme, because Tomorrowland is such a general encompassing thing.
Yes.
What would be a good idea for the first thing you'd see when you walked into this land?
That's a ride.
And that's a ride, or something that is about the future.
Yes.
And it kind of would be like, you know how Spaceship Earth is all about like what the future is going to be?
Well, it's more about where we are and
Yeah.
where we might go in the future.
Something kind of Horizon-y, where it's like, here's what the future currently looks like. And you could do sort of like, we already have Carousel of Progress, which shows the future, I'm saying in quotes with my
Yes.
fingers, because it's sort of this outdated future, but something that could easily be swapped out, like video screens or projection mapping, where you're showing like, here's the world of the future. We're going to travel into space. We're going to travel underwater. We're going to see all these things, and something that's just a little bit more engaging, where you can learn things.
Say, why not a travel ride where it's like, here's all the different places we may be able to travel, and then we'd break these two things into or the two theaters. You'd rip them out and then connect them, and then you'd go from one to the other.
Like a walkthrough.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I feel the parks are missing. The park in Paris has a lot of walkthrough attractions in it. There's the one that goes under the castle, and then we have one in Frontierland where it's sort of like the history of the Wild West. It doesn't exist in
There's
these
also
parks.
an Aladdin walkthrough and Alice in Wonderland.
Oh yeah, the Alice in Wonderland, and there's one that goes up in the castle and tells the story of Sleeping Beauty, I believe.
I think that's in Shanghai. I'm not sure though. You could be right.
But the point is, we don't have those walkthrough attractions. So something that's kind of like a maze, but something that also could just have like an automated mini sort of theater system. Because if you've ever been to Kennedy Space Center in Florida, there's this great sort of walkthrough attraction where you walk in and it holds maybe 10, 20 people at a time, but you sit down for like a minute at this little sort of display, and then something comes up in the display and it's like, here's how the Mars rover works. And then it says, continue on to the next room. And all the other rooms are only like a minute, and at the end it says, continue on to the next room. So you could do an automated walkthrough attraction where sort of smaller audiences could walk through and sort of stop at these little displays or something.
Here's how a theoretical warp engine would work. It warps space-time and allows us to travel faster than light, or something like that. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And or get a sponsor. Get who's that guy you hated before?
Elon Musk.
Get Elon Musk to be. Well, I shouldn't say you hate him, but
I do hate him, though.
Yeah, he just throws out money.
Yeah, he does just throw out money.
what about a room escape?
A Disney room escape? I feel...
A Tomorrowland themed room escape game that holds
That's
like
so specific. I think at Disney Springs
Yes.
you could do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't put that in a theme park. I think that's...
it's too much of like a hard ticket kind of thing.
Well, I was gonna say, and it's too much time. A room escape could theoretically be very short, but they're not usually great if they're very short. If you're going to have something where people have to commit an hour to it, then you don't want that right at the entrance to somewhere where they're going to be exploring a bunch of different rides and things. You want them to move from one place to another.
I just feel like they would. There's a certain time not to shoot down that because it would work so well in Disney Springs.
Yes.
I just feel like people would feel as though they'd be missing out about 40 minutes in.
Exactly, yes.
Because even if it's really fun and great, they're like, we're still like, this is our only time. Like, if it's a family, they're like, only time they get to go to Disney World. I don't know if they'd like. It's just it is such a huge time commitment, and especially kids. Oh my gosh, kids would want to get out of there immediately.
Oh yeah,
those things can be 40 minutes to an hour long, and there's nothing in the parks that no attraction that even reaches that length. Like Splash Mountain is 12 minutes, and other Ellen's Energy Adventure used to be like 20 or something.
Yeah.
But those were huge things. When you go into Ellen, you're like, okay, this whole ride building is for this one thing, sort of thing. But something that's like just a bit more engaging, a walkthrough, or even like a character. Like, we already have this Stitch meet and greet thing, but it's not really an experience. It's just go up and meet the character. Something a little bit more immersive with the character experience that you can like Enchanted Tales with Belle is kind of like a meet and greet, but at the same time it's a little bit larger than that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to use Guardians of the Galaxy as an example. Walking into a room and seeing sort of the Milano ship and everything, and then we go into the next room and Peter Quill is there, and we got to find like all these buttons around the room that help like the video screen get displayed so we can see Groot or something. And everyone gets to push a button.
I mean, yeah.
And then at the end he's like, "Good job, everyone. All right, let's pose for some photos." And it could be like, there are the two rooms. You could do two simultaneous 10-minute experiences. It and that would be a little bit, because like it would be nice to do some kind of bigger character meet and greet that's a little bit more immersive.
A little bit more, has a little more pomp and grandeur to it. Yeah, in Tomorrowland.
Tomorrowland doesn't really have a lot of character meet and greets because there's not a whole lot of like sci-fi future characters that people may want to meet. And Guardians.
Well, I was gonna say there just aren't that many sci-fi Disney movies to my knowledge. There's the Black Hole.
Yeah, Black Hole.
Not a lot of people want to see a sci-fi movie. That's why John
Treasure
Carter
Planet.
Treasure Planet. How have we not mentioned that yet?
That would be perfect, actually. Treasure Planet. I would love a Treasure Planet style thing.
Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
Oh, Atlantis. Atlantis is sci-fi-ish. Science fiction is more rooted in the science. Like a Star Trek is science fiction, where it's like you can explain the science behind something or behind how something works. Like the warp engines, they warp space-time around us, and that allows us to travel at faster than light speeds. Whereas Star Wars would be an example of sci-fantasy, where it's not fantasy themed. But it's got like laser swords and space wizards, and the science takes either a backseat or is entirely non-present. It's just a visual thing.
Here's a lightsaber. How does it work? Fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. We put a crystal in it. It's a crystal that's powered by the Force or whatever. They tried making Star Wars sci-fi with the prequels, and then it just didn't work. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Now, hey, I learned something.
Yeah, there you go. And I guess that's all we can ask for in this time that we've been recording, is that people learn something. That's two things. We've learned about our blind spots, and we've learned about the difference between science fiction and science fantasy.
Do your homework, everyone.
Assuming this isn't going to all get cut. But anyways, this episode's never airing. That'll be the new joke once it gets cut, becomes too mild. This episode's never airing.
I think we have enough theater shows in Tomorrowland.
And Magic Kingdom in general.
In general in Magic Kingdom, yes.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of sit-down, watch a thing happen kind of attractions. But we don't really have like the Epcot-y kind of mission space where you're getting in a capsule and you're going to push some buttons and feel like you're grabbing onto the what's it called? Joystick? What's the
yes,
that controls the
yes, it's a joystick is probably a flight stick, I think might be what it's called. But yes, a joystick, flight stick, any of those descriptions work. But yes, I understand what you're saying.
We have Buzz Lightyear, and that's a huge amount of interaction. It is specifically an interactive laser shooting ride.
Yes.
Not a whole lot of immersion in it, but it doesn't really need to be. But something that does have the balance of the two, like Monsters Inc. also has this huge interactive thing, but it's not really saying anything about the future.
Yeah.
It's let's make some dumb jokes and embarrass like up to 5 people in an audience every 10 minutes.
Yes.
But Stitch's Great Escape, it doesn't really have anything that's a little bit immersive, and I think Tomorrowland, I kind of expect that. With Avatar Land, I really want to go in and touch everything and see what I can interact with, and then you got all these other rides that are a little bit more interactive, but then nothing really happens in Stitch. So I'd love to see that turn into a little bit more of a ride, or I just don't want to see a theater show where I sit down and watch a thing in the middle and not do anything.
You don't?
As much as I love the shows at Disney, so much of them, like we talked about Hollywood Studios before, and there's like 10 different theater shows where you sit and watch a condensed version of an existing thing you already know, and it's like, let's just get people out of the heat and trick them into I hate to say trick, but a lot of those things are, let's trick people into watching Beauty and the Beast for like a billionth time. And it's a show. It's a Disney show, and this one is Stitch is a show essentially, but we're seeing just an expanded version of that scene from the movie, but nothing really comes out of it. Stitch escapes to the Magic Kingdom, which doesn't canonically work with the movie, and then we just leave. It's not like in the Alien Ecnounter original version, like the original George Lucas version, where this excess tech is trying to kill us on purpose,
yes,
and the alien helps us escape from the room, which would have been way too much for people to understand.
Yeah.
But that would have actually meant something.
Well, I was going to say, I think maybe that's what Stitch's Great Escape is missing. Obviously it's fake, and our brains are pretending to play along with it. But with the original ride, we have the emotional investment of we are the ones in danger. And so if we're at least we can interact on that level where it's like, ooh, we're the ones who are in danger. I'm scared, or at least that's what your brain is playing along with. You're having a micro emotion, as they call it. Was it a micro emotion or was it a pseudo emotion? I can't remember. I learned about this a while ago because I was reading about horror movies. But anyways, that's a different tangent. Kevin, any closing thoughts?
Wreck-It Ralph 2 is going to be bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wreck-It Ralph VR would be worse.
Mm-hmm.
I miss Alien Encounter, and Stitch's Great Escape deserve to die.
Okay.
Theater in the round is a very difficult type of show building to work with. Yeah, those are my thoughts. It's been a great time being on the podcast, but it's a brain. It's a lot of creativity required, and I hope I did okay.
Oh, you were awesome.
Yeah.
Good. I'll be waiting for the email from Imaginarian telling me that my Wall-E idea got picked up.
On a podcast like this, we do put ourselves into the shoes of Imagineers and
A little bit.
and sort of go into like that whole blue sky kind of concept. Or if somebody were to be told, like Imagineers were told, hey, we need to rehab this existing attraction. I think if this episode proved anything, it's that Disney is also probably having a hard time. I felt like we explored a lot of ideas, but even though we try not to like defer an idea or disagree with something, we found that on this episode, the three of us, we all couldn't really agree with anything that would work or something that would not work. It just seemed
none
like
of us were convinced in our own ideas, really.
Yeah.
And like we've done other episodes where we'll say, okay, like it's very obvious, like Great Movie Ride should have just been revamped or something. Like we all agree, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is probably going to be good, but they should have kept it. But in this case, we have someone who absolutely hates Stitch, we have someone who likes it, and someone who's indifferent. And even then, we couldn't seem to come to a conclusion of what should go here because the space is weird. The theater in the round thing is weird. The idea that this area is placed in Tomorrowland and is sort of like one of the first things you'll see when you walk in, all of that is weird. Mm-hmm. And I think it sort of did put us in the shoes of Imagineers who are also probably thinking the exact same thing where it's like, what can we even do with this space at this point? And I think they're probably going through that. Like, remember when we were trying to talk Epcot and we were like, oh, it's a little bit touchy to try and talk about other cultures when we don't know about them.
Yes.
And yeah, that's probably what's happening with Imagineers, just like they probably also are trying to work through so many ideas with Stitch's Great Escape and where it can go in the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that brings up the ultimate question: is it worth keeping? Is the way that this building is and the way the theater is it worth keeping, or should it just be replaced with some generic ride or something that's a little less unique? Because regardless of what we think about it and how difficult it is to work with, the theater in the round seating is very unique as far as a way of portraying a show or an experience.
Well, at this point, it's not worth keeping because you can't go in it. So
I guess that's true.
Like, you can't do it anyways.
Yeah.
So I mean, if the alternative is nothing, then of course open something else. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say.
If you look at Google Maps, the top-down view of this attraction and the building it's housed in, you would also have to get rid of anti-gravities, Star Traders, and make sure that it doesn't interrupt cosmic rays. Because if you got rid of those two gift shops, you would have enough room for a major attraction.
Yeah.
If that is going to be your weird Iron Man experience simulator, then...
Yeah, I mean, they could throw a couple simulator bays in there, no problem.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they can
easy.
just do whatever they want for it forever.
If you're going to bring Star Tours over here because it doesn't sort of fit in with Black Spire, then yeah, you would have to do a major overhaul of that area, or you'd have to rehab those two tiny theaters to put something else in.
Yeah.
Which, as we've proved in this podcast, is difficult
Yes.
to even come up with something that would fit there and matches sort of the outline of that theater. It's difficult, I think. We've hit a new sort of realm in this podcast that we haven't hit before.
I don't know. It's that when I heard you wanted to do Stitch's Great Escape, I was like, ugh, because it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because they already gave up on the one in Anaheim. It's a pizza joint. So
Rest in peace.
But I had a lot of fun. Our failure to come up with something good did not mean the podcast wasn't good.
That's true, I guess.
Well, no, we came up with Wally.
Well,
oh yeah, Wally. Duh.
Well, anyways, thank you, Kevin, so much for joining us on this episode. I'm sorry that the teleportation tube we're all in here is a little cramped, but that's beyond our control. It's just the way they laid this room out. But thanks for
You smell
joining
good though,
us.
so it's okay.
Oh, thank you. We're going to get out of this teleportation tube and see what else Walt Disney World holds in store for us. But thank you so much to everyone for listening. Go check out Defunctland and Kevin's new book. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Well, the book is unavailable for pre-order at this point, and it will be available on Amazon this fall, hopefully. So, fingers crossed, everyone will be able to easily purchase it, maybe even 2-day shipping if I can get it to the right warehouses. So, the book, which is on the history of the Magic Kingdom, where I do talk about Stitch's Great Escape and Extraterrestrial and everything that used to be there and is there now, is a full retrospective and will be coming out soon. So I'm look forward to that. It's called Defunctland Guide to the Magic Kingdom, and then you can go watch the Defunctland YouTube series at youtube.com/Defunctland. We are in season 2, and it's going really well. And we also have a new spin-off show that I'm really excited about called Defunct TV, which is where we look at old TV shows. So those are my plugs.
Bon voyage!
Wait, did everyone just hear Tim Curry's voice? Oh no. Okay, I think we're being teleported.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Ride Rehab. This is the last episode of the season for us, as we're going to start planning out the next set of episodes, guests, and other fun surprises.
We want your feedback. Post some reviews on iTunes, tweet to us on Twitter @Ride Rehab, and listen to the other episodes on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We want to know if you like the show, what you want to hear differently, or just remind us if we sound like 2 raccoons recording on Audacity inside of a trash can.
On September 12th, we will be hosting an unofficial event at Epcot. We'll be doing a meet and greet, group ride on Journey into Imagination, and give out some free Ride Rehab pins and other prizes.
And of course, for your source of the latest Disney park news, be sure to head to wdwnt.com, our awesome partners in podcasting. We've also appeared on their shows around the Hub, Park Center, and Game Nights, so check those out too.
Signing off for this season, I'm Thomas Kiernan.
And I'm Tyler Mann, and insert sign-off phrase here. Oh, we gotta actually come up with something.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Okay.
We can
That's
just sign
staying.
off like
That's
regular
staying
human
in.
beings. Not like some 18-year-old talking to a camera. 14 people away. We'll do a meet and greet, group ride on Journey into Imagination, and then giving out some You have worded this ridiculously.
You're right.
I have 8 billion things to say.